Karma is a problem, a huge problem. She's such a big problem for Legends of Runeterra that she's not only negatively affecting the current metagame we're in, but she also has a very good chance of negatively impacting future metagames, and it may even start with the very next set of cards that we're getting at the end of this month. Today I'm going to share a few reasons why Karma absolutely needs to be either nerfed or completely reworked. This is going to be a bit of a rant video, but I personally think I have sound reasoning behind why Karma needs to be changed. Let's jump right into it. First off, to clarify, there is nothing wrong with Karma's level 1 card. The level 1 is fine. It's the level 2 Karma that's the big problem, and I believe will continue to be if she's left as is. For those new, at level 1, Karma is a 5 mana champion with 4 power and 3 health that creates a random spell in your hand at the end of each round. In order for Karma to level up, you must be enlightened, which is a simple enough requirement to get. You just have to reach the maximum of 10 mana that the game allows, which basically just means you have to survive until round 10. When Karma levels up, she becomes a 5/4 and states that whenever you play a spell, cast it again on the same targets as long as she stays in play. The first reason why her level 2 needs to be nerfed or reworked is that the level 2 ability makes Karma much more powerful than any other late game win condition that exists in the game right now when it comes to building late game decks. Just like every other card game, the most common late game decks in Legends of Runeterra are control decks. Now, I'm saying this while keeping in mind that a control deck can technically use anything as a win condition. There's a common saying in card game communities that a control deck can win with a ham sandwich. The best example I can think of right now would be the spider cards that a lot of control decks are using again. So you can win with a bunch of 1/1 spiders as long as your deck can control the game long enough to do so. However, why would you do that when a card as powerful as Karma exists? Let's picture this for a moment. It's round 9, you have Karma in hand, along with 5 other cards also in hand. You've managed to control the game pretty well up until this point. On round 10, you've hit 10 mana and are now enlightened, so Karma will level up immediately when you play her. As soon as you play her, because of her level 2 ability to cast spells twice, if your hand is nothing but spells, the amount of available mana you have effectively doubles. Not only that, but the number of cards in your hand effectively doubles as well, given that same type of hand. Imagine having access to potentially 26 mana when you have a level 2 Karma, when your opponent can only access the 13 maximum mana the game normally gives a player. Also imagine your 6-card hand of 5 spells nearly doubling to 11 cards, since your spells get played twice for no extra mana, and you get their effects twice in many cases. Damage doubles if the target doesn't die from your initial static shock. You draw double the amount of cards with either that same static shock or a rummage that you only had to discard 2 cards for, by the way. You get the idea. And that's just the Karma Ezreal deck. Also, Karma decks are always built to run a lot of spells, so their hands will mostly consist of spells at any given time. When this is combined with another champion like Ezreal, it gets even more ridiculous when he levels up as well and they're both on the board. The Karma Ezreal deck in particular is very good at protecting both champions and can potentially deal 20 damage to your Nexus in 1 turn. But the deck doesn't need to do that to win. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, isn't Ezreal the problem then? No, at least not in the same way that Karma is. You need to build an Ezreal deck in a different way than a Karma deck, unless they're run together, of course. An Ezreal deck without Karma doesn't automatically win the game once it hits 10 mana and Ezreal is in hand. You often need to play longer than that to win. With Karma, you just need to reach 10 mana with a decent hand that includes a copy of Karma, and it'll be very hard for your opponent to beat you. Ezreal doesn't invalidate other late game cards from being played in other control decks the way Karma does. He's probably the second most powerful win condition in the game right now, but honestly, as frustrating as he can be, Ezreal is a pretty distant second compared to Karma in my opinion. She just makes building any other control deck pointless. This is also why I'm still skeptical of the Karina control deck that's been in the meta recently. It's good, definitely better than I thought it was initially, but its late game win condition of playing Commander Ledros, then following up with Karina Veraza, both of them awkward cards to play at times, just isn't as powerful as what Karma does, so the deck feels kinda pointless to be honest. That was a lot to get through, but there's another reason why level 2 Karma needs to be nerfed or reworked, and that's that Karma will very likely limit design space for future card sets as far as what kinds of cards the design team can come up with that wouldn't absolutely break the card, although I personally think she's broken now. This includes other champions and units that are designed to be played in the late game, and especially includes basically any spell card they make. Karma has to constantly be considered anytime you try to design a new spell card, since it could have a big impact on the meta. She'll limit creativity and could prevent certain spells with cool effects from ever seeing the light of day as an actual card, particularly if the effect is pretty powerful. You're forced to make weaker spell cards to compensate in that situation. Now, I do understand that sometimes some cards get made to intentionally limit design space and to actually challenge designers to design cards with certain restrictions in mind. The intent is usually to bring out creativity. That might be the case with Karma, I'm not sure, but it's happened in other card games I've played. From a player's perspective, unfortunately, I do think that if Karma stays the way she is, it will mean that any other late game champion or other win condition we get will always be compared to Karma. The question players will always be asking is, does this new card that's meant to be a win condition in control decks or combo decks do more powerful things than Karma? And if it doesn't, that card will be relegated to some tier 2 or 3 deck or won't be used at all, and the dream of it being part of a top tier control deck won't be realized. Which is bad for new cards because you want players to play with the new cards you've given them, not the same old cards they've been playing for months on end because they're more powerful than the new ones. I think the Legends of Runeterra team at Riot does have to be extremely careful when designing effects based around getting to 10 mana, and I'm sure they know this. Keep in mind this game has guaranteed mana, unlike say Magic the Gathering where you have to run resource cards that represent mana in your deck, which means you have to draw those resource cards in order to play your mana, and you need to play your mana in order to play your other cards. I don't want to keep making comparisons because that's not my intention with this video, but Hearthstone, another game that has guaranteed mana, is another great example of this. Back in 2017, there was a little card called Ultimate Infestation that was in Hearthstone's Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion. This was a Druid card that was almost single-handedly responsible for Druid being the best deck for a little while. In a game where you're guaranteed to reach 10 mana, as long as you defend yourself until then, this card plagued the Hearthstone metagame. Basically, when combined with other cards like Spreading Plague, a card that was later nerfed, if the Druid player hit 10 mana and played Ultimate Infestation, there were situations where you could just concede because you no longer had any chance to win the game. And we see the same thing with Karma. If she levels up when your opponent reaches 10 mana and they have a decent sized hand, it's probably better to just concede because it doesn't matter what you still have left in your hand. You're not going to have the resources to beat someone that has effectively doubled their hand size and has access to twice the amount of mana that you do. But let's have a little bit of fun for this last part of the video. I'm sure some of you might be asking this. What would be my nerf or rework to Karma if I could change her? First off, I don't think a simple stat change or increase in mana cost would do much to reduce Karma's play rate. She's played for her level 2 ability and nothing else. A mana cost increase would really only affect her level 1, and Karma players will just decide to wait until they hit 10 mana and have spell mana banked before playing her so they can protect her. Same with a stat change. I think it would do almost nothing since Karma decks are very good at protecting Karma. So what I would do is completely rework her level 2 card. Currently, level 2 Karma works similar to her Mantra ability in League of Legends. So I would either give her an entirely different ability based on something else in her League of Legends kit, or if she was to keep the ability she has now, I would add some type of additional cost to the second spell that's cast, which would still be a rework in my eyes. It would be something like, when you cast a spell, create a fleeting copy of that spell in your hand. It costs X less. That X could be 2 mana less, 3 mana less, 1 mana less, etc. But there would be some type of additional cost to casting the second copy of the spell. This rework means it not only costs additional mana to play it, but an additional action as well, which the current Karma doesn't do. As of now, both spells get played without needing to use an additional action to do so. Alright, rant over. I think Karma is a huge problem because she limits design space as far as what cards get printed in future sets, and she stifles deck building because every new late game card we see in the future that you can build a deck around will be weighed against Karma, and whether or not it's as good, better, or worse than Karma. And a lot of those cards probably won't be as good as Karma unless we're about to see a major power creep soon. Anyway, if you liked the video, feel free to hit the like button just below the video. If you don't want to miss future Legends of Runeterra content from me, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell icon as well. I'm also streaming again on Twitch, so feel free to drop a follow on my Twitch channel and all the other social media places I hang out at. Links to all of those in the video description below. Thanks for taking time out of your day to watch this, and I'll catch you all next time. Take care.